And you're live.
Right, call the November meeting of the Audit Committee to order. First order is to do the roll call. I see the two alderpersons, Alderwoman Pendle Charles and Mr. Huntley. We have Jim Cardello in person, and Anthony, we see your name up, but we don't see you yet, Mr. Nobiello. But we do have a quorum. We may be having some technical issues, but let's move on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
You. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Let's have it. Next item is approval of the minutes from the October meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Guys have it. Next item on the agenda is old business. The audit committee vacancy is, we have a person who could potentially be on the audit committee, also could potentially be on the financial advisory commission, but also could be our new finance director. So obviously, with all of those things being sought, I think he's very qualified. I had a couple of conversations with him. Good morning, Miss Baker.
Good morning. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. We're just taking care of the usual things. We're on old business on vacancy. We have a very good candidate. I was explaining to others, but he's so good that he might be a candidate for also the fact and also for finance director. So he's waiting to see how that all carries out. But meantime, quite a good candidate. His name is Peter Vale. Once again, we can thank Mr. Cardillo for doing due diligence and finding a sterling candidate for us. So we'll see how that works out. In the meantime, we'll continue to have a vacancy. Do we have any update on the performance measure strategic plan? Ms. Buckland.
Those you should have the full slate of measures proposed for next month. Mr. Cardell, you had asked some questions about highlighting in the previous last month, some measures that where we want to pay particular attention. So I did do that in the file. There are still a couple of things that I need to add in, but you'll see some highlighting in there. Some of them are related to data that I think is complete, but that I think we should pay attention to. There's some, for example, within transit that is around revenue recovery, for example. And then there are some where I'm not entirely sure the data is fully clean. There are several within public works that are like that. So I'm still in the process of following up on those. But you should have the new ones that I would like to be on the agenda next month to present those and talk about how we want to change how we're looking at the harbor master, planning and zoning, OEM, and IT.
Okay. So we're progressing right along just in time for the beginning of the budget process.
Yep. Yep, that is the goal. Also, with respect to measures, I'll let you guys know that we are implementing you know how last year we did the National Community Survey? There is sort of a sister survey that same company, Polco, does, which is the National Employee Survey. We'll be doing that this year to have that inside view for this year's budget preparation.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Moving on to the next item, the risk assessment, fraud and abuse hotline. Once again, we have no new reports of fraud or abuse. We have outstanding and due from me, but not available yet to you, report closing out the discussion of the market house contracts. I've discovered that I had some missing pieces when I sat down to write that, but I promise we'll have that in your hands for the next audit committee meeting. So, Jim, did you want to say briefly the thing that you were talking that we ought to add in terms of having I'm trying to remember now, reporting process?
So I guess I'm not going to sit and read 39 pages of a lease that I'm not a party to.
Yeah.
So let me just say that.
Right.
The city is party to the lease. The city acts as landlord. My opinion is the city manager should be the one who acts in the landlord position. Not the council, not the mayor, city manager. It's a managerial function. But if the audit committee has to exercise oversight, the audit committee's position should be to ensure that there is a process in place, the process is deemed proper, and that the process is being followed. So those three things are the task of the audit committee. Do we have a process in place? Is it a good process? And is it being followed?
When you say process, what a process in place, what is the process that you're thinking of?
Process of acting as the landlord within this arrangement. This market house agreement. Yes.
The city should have a landlord process.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is a work in progress with.
And then there's a number of different compliance pieces, one of which is a financial compliance. And I think what may work in this scenario is to create an addendum to the lease that gives a quarterly report. It's a one-page quarterly report that says we have paid all our rent through a certain date. And if I were to make an assumption that this is a quarterly report, it will be due, say, 10 or 15 days at the close of every quarter. So you close September 30, it's due October 10 or October 15 or somewhere around there. But the report signed by the tenant, it's a master lease, and it says, I am current on all base rent. I am, here's the calculation of supplemental rent. And I am in compliance with all existing city, state, and federal required filings. Because I guess, Ross, people had raised questions about, do we know if they're doing this? Do we know if they're doing this? And I don't think it's the audit committee's purview to determine all these things. This is really the two parties to the contract should be handling this. So if you work in an addendum that has a one-page report and the tenant signs and attests under penalties of perjury that I'm in compliance with all required state, federal, and local filings, I think that's the extent of it.
No, thank you for that, going over that again. Jim and I had talked about it earlier. There's another issue. We have a recent email from yet another party asking whether the market house has paid entertainment fees. Entertainment for what? And is it our job? So the person has said that they have music in their bands or whatever. I don't know whether just having a band, does that require that you pay an entertainment fee? Is the band paying the market house some money to play, or is it vice versa? But again, I don't know how we would expect the audit committee to do that due diligence. And so what is in the offing, we have recreated the Office of Central Services, And that is where all of these different kinds of contracts, we have contract arrangements all over the place. We have a contract with the Maritime Museum, actually, I think two. And there's a lot of other things. And the problem is they bubble up. We set up these arrangements, but we don't really task anyone to follow that. And what has happened by default is it falls on the finance department to do that. And I don't think this is something that the finance department has the staff to do. And so in line with your discussion of is there a process in place, I think that we need to make sure that we have a process in place for getting all of those kinds of things recorded. So that will be in the draft report that I will be giving to you for your consideration at the next council meeting, and in addition to the reporting of the findings mainly from information from the finance department, from Director Dickinson, that we are largely back in compliance. I think there's still a connection between audit accounting periods, but as far as we can tell from reporting from the director, we're up to date on all monies due to us for rents and sub-rents and anything else. But that'll be coming to you in a draft, and we'll also be obviously having the finance director and the Office of Law, good morning, Mr. Lyles, reviewing that report just to make sure that it's sufficient. So with that, is there any other comment on this particular old business item? New business is usually report from the finance director, but she is off on training, I think it is, or some kind of a conference. So there won't be that report. Is there any other new business from committee members? This might be a record short meeting. I have nothing else. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.